Thank you for joining me today, taking time out of your day to go over the MCIT program and going a little bit more in depth into just the personal perspectives, giving it a bit more humanistic touch. So, what you want to just start with a quick intro about you as well as MCIT?
Sure. So I've been teaching at Penn for the past 7 years. Throughout my time at Penn, I've been associated with the MCIT program. When they recruited me, they said that I'd be teaching the theoretical, like math and algorithms courses for MCIT. After Chris Murphy decided to transition to be the director of MCIT Online. They asked me if I'd be interested in being his replacement for the MCIT on campus. And so for the last, what's it been? Well, your batch, Tina, was the first batch that was under my directorship. So yeah, it's been, I guess, 2.5, 3 years since I took over as director.
Cool, cool. And could you also give us just like a little bit of information about the MCIT program? Like I know it's split between MCIT online and offline, but maybe just like a general
Sure,
introduction.
yeah. So the overall perspective of MCIT is there are many folks who did not do computer science in their undergraduate studies, went off into the world, got a job, or maybe didn't even, get a job during their undergrad, but later on in their undergrad, they realized that computer science might be something that they'd be interested in, and they want to change careers. Uh, how do they do that? Well, our program's the answer. I suppose there are other competing programs, but they're very few, and this is where I'll blow our program's trumpet and say that I think we're the best. I think in terms of what we try and provide for transitioning from wherever you came from to computer science, it's structured quite well. It is intense, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. And I know, Tina, you've been talking about that in other videos that you've recorded. But if you can handle that first year and kind of grit yourself through that first year, where we teach you the fundamentals of computer science, then after that, what I love is the fact that MCIT students in their second year take electives with the regular masters in CS students. And the first time that I taught all of this back in, what was it, 2013 when I joined Penn, I was like, this is ridiculous. I will teach them because it's my job, but I'm sure they'll be slaughtered in the second year when they go out and compete with the regular computer science masters. And
Mhm.
that's not true. It's just, I think it's a testament to just how gritty the MCIT students are. And yeah, I mean, like, I think our program does prepare folks in the first year reasonably well, but um, we're trying to get people who are really passionate about making that transition to computer science, and that's kind of the key ingredient that makes it succeed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I'm also biased because I came out of the program, but I think it was first year was really quite rough, and I do go into more detail about that in my other videos. But after getting through that though, like second year felt almost like a breeze, you know, like after just like struggling from that like zero, from going from zero to, you know, I guess like one and then going on just to do a little bit more. Second year was just so much easier after that.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's see. So I have a few questions for you. I'm just like looking at my list right now. So you actually mentioned my second question, which is like, what is the profile of someone that is
Mhm.
good for MCIT? And you're saying someone that's like really gritty, right? Which is actually a term that was from another Penn professor, right? Angela Duckworth.
Why do you think Penn professors use that term a lot? It's like, okay, well,
Oh, okay.
she used it, so, and she's defined it. So if anyone asks me what the definition is, it's like, go read Angela's book, right? So uh, yeah. But sorry, was there more to that question, or is the
No,
question
no, just
basically around like what are we
yeah,
looking?
like what's the like profile? So you went into that a little bit already about being like gritty. Is there any other characteristics you think is a good profile?
Yeah, well, so I think at the base level, the student needs to have done well in their undergrad. And that does that mean a certain GPA cutoff? Yes, there is one, but I don't think it's like something as ridiculous as 3.8 or something, I mean, basically unachievable. Uh, there's some cutoff for the GRE as well, but that's so both those cutoffs I'm just mentioning because we get a lot of applications and it's nearly impossible to read every single statement. But once
Mhm.
you've cleared those cutoffs, then what we're looking for is your statement, which is where you demonstrate an interest for computer science, tell us where that interest came from. I mean, this probably is obvious, but I'll mention statements that say I want computer science because I want money. Is that might be true, but I mean, we're looking for a slightly better reason than that.
Mhm.
uh, then your letters of recommendation also matter. I think that any letter of recommendation that points to why this person is making this career transition is always interesting. Someone who, I don't know, let's say, because we get a lot of people, let's say, from like finance backgrounds, right? So very
Mhm.
often we get letters of recommendation that talk about the student being very good in finance, econ, those types of things. Um, but even just a little line in there by whoever the recommender might be that attests to the student being someone who can make a transition, may not even be like make a transition to computer science, but
Mhm.
just pointing out that they can take on challenges and all that because I mean there's you the applicant saying you're gritty, and then there are professors or your recommenders saying that you're gritty, so that combination I think is probably what we're looking for the most.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially like when you say that grittiness, like part of that is passion, right? You have to have a good enough reason why you're doing this to pull you through. Or else, like when you're attacked by the first year of MCIT, you're just like, oh God, like why am I doing this, right? Like to
Yeah,
have that motivation.
yeah, and I think the important thing, Tina, is that everyone who's coming in has an undergraduate degree, right? So
Mhm.
there's so when like when you're doing your undergrad, for most of us, we in the midst of our undergrad, uh, we're not really thinking of bailing because we feel that okay, we need to have like some degree, right? We recognize the value of a degree. We
Mhm.
think that we're probably not going to be employed if we don't have that degree. But
Mhm.
for most people, they might even have been employed before coming to MCIT. So bailing is a potential option, but most of them don't bail because they're just so convinced that there's going to be like a brighter future if they manage to get through all of this. And
Mhm.
one of the things I love is, well, I don't want to say that it's harder with undergrads, but if you're doing an intro to CS, intro to programming rather class with undergraduates, I feel that the first week, or maybe even the first 2 weeks, you're going to spend saying, look, CS, bright, beautiful, shiny. In MCIT, no one has time for that. If I walked into my intro to programming class for MCIT and said, do you know why CS is cool? They're like, hey, Arvind, stop. Like, teach me Java, teach me a for loop, teach me lead code. Like, I
Yeah.
know it's shiny. I mean, I think it's shinier than even you might be thinking about it, right? So that conviction's already happened, and that sometimes comes out in the application process itself. But even if it does, even if it's not like super clear and the applicant is selected, somehow I think just that atmosphere of like everyone being convinced that this is what they should be doing really helps. There isn't anyone in MCIT who says, "Oh, I'm undecided about computer science." Like, no, you made your decision, right? Like for the next 2 years, this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel like the application almost forces you to also introspect on that because it's hard to write an personal statement about why you're transitioning into a career if you don't actually know why you're
Yeah,
transitioning into a
absolutely.
career,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the retention is, at least for my year, it was really, really high. And we were saying about that community, first was the applicant quality, also the community helped a lot because it's, if you see everybody like hustling around you, it's harder for you to just be like, well, I just give up. It's like there's like that atmosphere.
Yeah, I'd like to think that all of us instructors in the first year are trying to, basically convince people that they can make it, that the MCIT program is collaborative. And by that, I don't mean that, work on homeworks together and stuff like that, but more from the perspective of, let's not compare how quickly you did this homework, or your marks and stuff like that. I mean, you've taken my courses. We try pretty hard to like not show the curve and say, look, that tail, that's you. Like, we're almost aggressive about like not, as teachers, not comparing students. Of course, students might do it behind our backs. That's obviously like, what students do. I'd like to hope that as the years go by, people realize that you're not competing among yourself. You're competing among like other people from other programs who want those jobs and all that, right? So yeah, I think the community is good. I think people do tend to help each other. There might be clusters of friendship, but I think overall, by the time people finish their first year, I would like to believe that every person in MCIT has made, at least 3 or 4 solid friends, if not more, and that they kind of pull each other through.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important as well. Like as a community and having other people that you're more close with, that's really helpful, especially when you're, trying to like cram for something, or, sometimes you just need to like bounce ideas, right? Like especially like for 592, like the discrete math course, often like the ideas are very abstract and hard to grapple with. So having someone to talk about with, it can help clear things up in your mind a
Yep.
lot better.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, let's see. My other question, it's like the question that everybody asks, and I've been asked this a lot of times as well. I'm sure you know, what is the difference between
Oh,
MCIT online and on campus?
well, I don't know if you're on MCIT Piazza. No, yeah, actually, you are on
I am.
MCIT Piazza. So, well, if someone's watching this video and if they're an incoming student or even a student that is going to show up like a year and a half from now, MCIT Piazza, because it's preserved in posterity, I mean, I put a lot of effort into writing that response, and I would say if someone wants like the longer version, they should read that response. Chris Murphy and I also discussed it, a little bit before I put it out on Piazza. But the short version of it is, I think, well, on campus, you have access to a lot of people. And those people include your faculty. Those people include faculty from other departments like criminology, like electrical engineering, like Wharton. And those other departments are places where yes, it might look like you can only do one approved elective, but 1 out of 10 is still 10% of your course, which is something that the MCIT online students can't do, at least as we currently speak. The access to faculty, whether in our CS department or outside CS, also means that you could do research with them, which might seem like shooting at the moon or something like that when you're starting from scratch. But we've had success stories of people doing research. And this is something that I absolutely love about MCIT, which is that everyone can choose to have a very unique path once they start learning the basics. So if someone wants to do a PhD after MCIT, it is possible. It's hard. How do you get into a PhD? Well, I need to do research. How do you do research? Oh, sorry, if you're MCIT online, I don't know what the procedure is. I'm sure that there's something that they've thought of, but I think it's undeniable that it'll be easier if you're on campus. And the last thing is, and I mean, this perhaps is the most important thing, because we just talked about that grittiness and like people pulling each other through the process. It's far easier to make friends and find your clique and your group that you're going to hang with if you're on campus. I think online it's possible, but you're you're unlikely to be exposed to everyone, which you are on campus. And on campus, there's only one section per course. We actively try to ensure that there aren't more than 75, 80 people in any incoming MCIT cohort. Even 75, 80, I think, is on the larger side. 75, 80 people all in the same classroom. Within the first month or so, you hopefully, and in practice, I've also seen this, that like most people know who they're going to hang with for the next, I don't know, like month or so. Online, that's hard. I'd say one more thing, which, I mean, this is something I'm passionate about when it comes to the difference. I feel that having a live lecture and having the ability to ask a question while you're still processing what the teacher just said is pretty key to understanding any subject. MCIT online, everything is pre-recorded. So if you have a teacher saying some complicated formula and the rest is left to the reader, well, the rest is left to the reader, I mean, or the listener or the viewer. Whereas on campus, if I said something like that, a student might say, well, I don't get it. Can you show me the next step? And it's not just me. I think pretty much every MCIT on campus instructor will be like, yeah, okay, I'll do the next step, which means that that lecture at that moment has become unique because that person asked that question. Whereas the MCIT online lecture, it's the same canned good being stored, served up to you over and over again. Not saying that the quality is bad or anything like that, but it's just that dynamic nature that's there in a on-campus experience where you can ask questions and you can also ask your classmates questions. I mean, I don't know about, maybe the modern student is different, but when I was in a classroom, I always used to be like, what did they say? What did they say? Like, please explain to me. There's those that that whispering that happens in a classroom, I think, helped me understand, and I hope it's something that students still value. So those are, yeah, much longer explanation on Piazza. We can link to that for people who are, part of our program.
I actually wanted to ask, is that piazza a public piazza that people can access to, or is it only after they apply?
It is somewhat public. I mean, I'm okay with you taking that response and putting it into, yeah, I don't know, like if this was a podcast, we'd say show notes or something like that, right? I don't know where it goes in YouTube, but if you want to do that, I'm fine with that.
Okay, cool, cool. And okay, let's do a plug for MCIT Online. Why would someone want to, what are like the pros of MCIT Online when they're making
Sure.
that?
Yeah. So well, this is probably the most I wouldn't say controversial, but a lot of people view this as the biggest benefit. It's cheaper. It is. Yeah. I mean, facts are facts, right? So as it currently stands, it's about one third the cost of MCIT on campus. I don't think it's exactly one third because Penn has all of those like taxes and extra fees and all that type of stuff. So, but it's still significantly cheaper. So that's point number one. I think the other aspect of it is that because it's online, you don't have to move to Philadelphia. You don't have to give up your job. Most people who do MCIT online are working as well. So if you're doing MCIT on campus, yes, we have some folks who do it part-time, but most of the people who do MCIT on campus part-time are employed by the university. And so they're already in Philadelphia. They're just basically going from one building to another when they have to take classes. MCIT Online has a much higher percentage of people who take one class a semester and do a job. So they'll take a little bit longer to graduate, but they already have a job. So I don't think a lot of them are viewing MCIT Online as a stepping stone that they need to take immediately. They're okay with spreading it out a little bit longer.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I think even if so the not moving to Philadelphia thing also makes it such that you could do this degree from basically anywhere in the world. I suppose I should have mentioned one downside or one comparison between online and on campus. If you want to come to the United States, immigration, all that sort of stuff, you need to do the on-campus program. But if you're, let's say you're in Australia, you want to stay in Australia, you just want a computer science degree from Penn, while you're in Australia, do this degree. You'll get an MCIT degree from Penn and use it for employment within your own country. And I've seen people do that as well.
Right, right. Cool. That was a plug for MCIT Online as well.
Yeah, no, I
So,
think it's very useful. I think if I will say also, Tina, that I think I mean, yes, the money's a factor, and yes, like moving to Philadelphia is a factor. But one thing that I hope students are doing when they're making the decision between the two is asking themselves like, what kind of environment helps them study the best? Because when you're
mhm,
making a career transition like this, you you want to be able to absorb the material as quickly and as effectively as possible. And some people thrive in that classroom environment. Some people um, prefer learning in their room, rewinding videos, watching them over and over again. So yeah, that's and both are fine. I mean, you just be honest to yourself as to like which mode works for you.
yeah, I mean, in the end, you still get an MCIT degree from Penn, right? So,
Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
cool, cool. So next question, internships and jobs. So if you have any stats you want to share, feel free to. But I actually want this to maybe be like a bit more like maybe stories, right? Like what are some stories that you've seen, like successes and struggles of students, or any like favorite stories that you've had?
Favorite stories. Okay, so I guess, I mean, this doesn't pertain to any specific person, but uh, my favorite stat is that when the MCIT students graduate, I was looking at whatever survey information we have, like what job they have on the day that they graduate, or actually, it's not even when they graduate, it's close to graduation, about a week or so before graduation. We survey them, and yeah, I mean, earlier it used to be just, well, please fill it out because you're trying to be nice to me. Then we started bribing them with hoodies, and the response rate went up. Um, Pretty much every student has managed to get a job before they graduated. And I say pretty much every, the actual number from, I just was pulling up like the last survey that we had. I think that was from not your year, but the previous year. And so out of 46 people who filled out the survey, there were only 3 who said they didn't have, that they were still looking at the time that they filled out the survey. And 43 out of 46 is, I mean, pretty good. I also know that the people who said they didn't have a job at that point, I know each one of them like personally, and I know that they are employed now. One of them's employed in one of the fancy like FANG companies and all that. So I guess the wait was worth it for them. Um, so yeah, so jobs, I'm very happy to say it's not been something that people are having an issue with. Do people worry about it? Yes. I mean, they're human, they'll worry. There's this statistic, obviously you can pull it out, but students start worrying about when they're going to get a job. It's January, I haven't got a job. It's February, I haven't got a job, or whatever. There's like some expected date by which they get a job. And I don't know what the average date is. I just know that a lot of that worrying seems slightly unnecessary. I mean, I think just as as human students tend to worry, but given the success rate, at least in like the pre-COVID era, things seem to be okay. Internships is a different story altogether. So I would say that so there maybe telling you some stories is interesting. But sort of the overall picture is that a lot of students get internships in companies that are not the so-called like cool companies or the FANG companies or whatever, right? But a fair number of them are able to use that as a launch pad to get into the bigger companies. So there will be lots of people who, when I ask them, what do they do over the summer? They tell me, oh, there's this company, you might not have heard of them, but I had a good time over there. I learned a lot. And then Yes, they gave me like a full-time offer, but I'd prefer to work for a larger company. Let's see if I can get that job. And most of them do. So this, I think it's an incorrect assumption, and the data also reveals this, that, let's say you want to get a job in Microsoft. There's a tendency among students to think that, oh, I can't get a job in Microsoft if I didn't intern in Microsoft or Microsoft equivalent companies. The data seems to suggest that that is absolutely not true. It is also not true that you need an internship before you can get a full-time job in Microsoft, right? So, in fact, I think there was a year where all the students who did not do an internship managed to get a full-time job in Amazon or Google. So, making all these like connections and correlations and causations, well, you're a data scientist yourself, right? Like the evidence isn't there. Anecdotes are there, but yeah, this is, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's, I'm not saying you shouldn't do an internship, because if you don't do an internship, you get a job in Amazon. That's stupid as well. So take that information more as, yes, it's possible to get an internship. Don't stress about that, and the job's going to be fine. Couple of interesting jobs and internships. I think over the years, I've been fascinated by newer domains that MCITs have cracked into. So I think in 2013, 2014, when people were graduating, like my first year with MCIT, a lot of folks were looking at, the Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft type of companies. Uh, Obviously, some of the companies that we think are cool right now didn't even exist back then. But let's see, something like Dropbox was there. I don't think anyone got a job in Dropbox. In more recent years, there have been people who got jobs in Dropbox. There were some, uh, let's see, there were folks who wanted to do research and were trying to do a PhD, were finding it much harder back then. Recently, we've had someone who started out with like basically minimal knowledge of computer science, just did MCIT, didn't even do like a master's in CS, and they've managed to get a PhD offer from Penn. I think that yeah, it's not a job, but as a success story, I'm very proud of the fact that that is also something that can happen. People have gone into Airbnb. People, let's see, Pinterest is something that's new in terms of like a company that people are going into. Yeah, so newer domains for sure. And then um, also worth mentioning, people who have gone off and tried to do startups and things like that. So those have, obviously that's riskier, but that's also been something that MCIT students have been able to do. Overall, I think prospects are pretty high. Happy to supply numbers and all that later on. And
Yeah, for sure. We can always link it in descriptions as
yeah,
well. You can peruse the numbers freely.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Also, just touching on that a bit, what about, okay, so to rephrase my question, like I know there's a lot of people coming into MCIT who are looking into combining with what they currently do with computer science, right? So do you have any like kind of examples or experiences that you could share about people who did that?
Well, in recent years, I think well, someone quite well, with are we allowed to say names? I don't know if we want to say names, but
Let's
uh,
not say names, but I can always like edit that out.
yeah, you
So
can always be like,
yeah, like please.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So a certain someone that you and I both know came to this program with the desire to basically work on like smart cities and stuff like that, and got an internship in that domain. Uh, Pretty much, as far as I know, never really chased after like the big tech companies. Was pretty convinced that they wanted to marry their like previous skills with the computer science skills, and now they're working for a company that yeah, like I don't even understand the complete picture over there, but they're very passionate about like how can I have like smart lighting, energy efficient stuff, all that, like this whole concept of smart cities, which is futuristic and extremely cool, and is, as far as I know, not directly related to anything that the big companies are working on. I'm sure that the big companies will try and buy out these companies at some point, but yeah. So there's that story of like transport as a domain being used. I know some people who have used, I would say, some mixture of like computer vision and sort of like healthcare type of stuff to as their like prior domain of expertise, or well, I guess they knew medicine beforehand, and then while they were at Penn, they learned more of the machine learning and vision, and then they went back and did more along those lines. uh, definitely lots of people who used finance before, and then after MCIT went back and started working more on the like quant side of things, as opposed to, I guess, whatever they were doing before. They probably were some kind of consultant before coming to
Mm.
MCIT, is my assumption. Um, yeah, so those are sort of the three examples that come to mind. I'll also say that, and I don't think that this is a bad thing. I said, like, there are folks who join MCIT thinking that they will use their prior skills and then
Mm.
use CS and then like mix and merge and all that. And oftentimes I wonder whether that's because they feel that they can't compete in the field because their experience will be less than someone who's had a 4-year degree or a 5-year degree or whatever the case might be, and they find, hopefully to their amazement, pleasant surprise, whatever you want to say, that they are totally accepted by these bigger companies. They can ace the tech interviews and all that. And uh, if they want to just completely leave their past behind, that is definitely possible.
Mm.
And I actually think 75% of our candidates are doing that. I personally don't view it as a negative, and I don't think that they view it as one either. I think for a lot of them, it's like, yeah, I didn't know that I could join an Amazon, a Google. I used to do chemistry. Now I'm in Amazon. Hey, is Amazon doing chemistry? No. Am I disappointed that I don't have to deal with, chemistry stuff anymore? Absolutely not. I hated chemistry. I just wrote that I'll mix and merge chemistry and CS because I thought that that would get me into the program. So yeah, so I don't think that I personally have not heard of anyone being disappointed, at least at this stage in their career, that they're not merging their previous skill with what they have.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can like speak personally to that as well because that's what I wrote on my personal statement. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna mix healthcare with
Mhm.
CS, but in a way, it's because I only knew healthcare, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
to me like I had to merge it with healthcare because I don't know what is there that is outside of it. And then after like being exposed to so many more opportunities, you realize that maybe it's not healthcare that you love so much. Maybe it's like specific patterns of thinking, right? Like maybe you just really like the idea of computational thinking or like data science and you can apply that to so many other fields in tech as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and I think one thing, just to build off of your point, a lot of people don't know what computer science truly is until they're in the midst of a computer science department and hearing the projects and all those. I mean, companies other than the ones that they might be thinking of when they think of computer science. Like eventually they might go to those bigger companies, but they might be viewing, I don't know, they might be viewing Google as a search engine. Uh, I don't think anyone in computer science thinks of Google as just a search engine anymore, right?
Mhm.
So once you join CS, you realize, okay, there's so many different courses and so many different application areas, and if you're
Yeah,
interested in something, you just pursue that.
yeah, for sure. In the beginning, it's like you don't even know what you don't know, right? So you gotta like jump
Exactly.
in.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
think like, I mean, you think lots of people make this mistake of thinking that CS equals programming, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
it takes a long time before you realize that. Thankfully, actually, for both you and I, if I can speak for you also a little bit, that it is more than like writing a whole bunch of like classes and for loops and recursions and all that type of stuff. And I think both of us would not be in this field if it was simply that.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
There's just so much more to it. Yeah. But thank you so much for that. I think that was really insightful because it kind of covered both like, internships jobs as well as like more specific examples, which I feel like other platforms where I guess like other sources of information, they just kind of do the stats, right? But it doesn't really mean anything unless you really attach it to a story.
Yeah, I'd also say, and I mean, assuming that we have a broad audience for this, I love the fact that we we have we have lots of stories of people who kind of gave up their, yeah, I'd say gave up their career a little bit um while basically having to be homemakers and like bring up kids, and then they were sort of doing computer science, and then they brought up their kids, then they wanted to come back to computer science, and then they, through our program, they managed to, like, I guess, like reignite that passion and then go back into computer science. And I think that's been, yeah, that's been very cool for me to see. I really love the fact that um, like, yes, computer science is somewhat on the younger side if you look at like average age of employees and things like that, but a lot of people do our program, figure out that they're just as smart as the youngsters are, that they can go back into the field, and because they have more experience, that they'll actually be given positions of more responsibility as well when they apply to the field. So,
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. I didn't even know that, but that's a really cool way of using that degree.
yeah, there've been I'd say every year we've had at least two people who are coming back into the field. I One of the people actually gave me a book which is in my office that I can't get access to because of COVID.
Uh,
But that book basically talks about, I think the title of the book is like What Computers Can't Do, and it was written in like the 60s or something like that.
mm,
So it's funny to see, like that was their association with computer science, like before that they're gonna give it up, bring up their kids. Now their kids are grown. They're like, okay, you know what? I gave up so much for you. Now I'll come back into the field. And I don't think that they could have done that with like the regular masters in CS degree.
right. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about where MCIT is heading in the future?
Ooh. Uh, well, we'll just have to. Am I allowed to answer this question by throwing the big villain in the story completely out of the picture, or am I supposed to address the villain, our current villain, Mr.
That
Corona?
is up to you. That's up to your discretion.
I guess the short version is that uh, under the current situation, it's very hard to predict anything. But I will say that we're no worse than any other degree program. Where from everything I've seen, the world still needs technology. You and I are using technology at this very moment as we speak to one another. And people from our degree program could be employed by said company that is providing the technology that helps you and I talk. There are more than enough uh, venues where people are, I mean, even outside of Zoom, like people are trying to stay in touch with other people through this pandemic. I think you've seen social media companies try and be better about how they process information, how they um, try to ensure that fake news is spread to a slightly lesser extent than it was before, meaning that we need, I think, more sophisticated folks to be employed by those companies.
Mhm.
It's no longer going to be good enough to just like have some full stack developer. You want a full stack developer with also some actual understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, what content needs to be published, what content does not need to be published, should be flagged and stuff like that. So I guess CS is still going to be around whenever this pandemic is done. Uh, I would say before the pandemic hit, I was I was optimistic about going back to what you were saying, differences between MCIT online and MCIT on campus. I was optimistic about the fact that students seemed to be picking one or the other based on the type of student that they were. So we were catering to a much broader audience than we ever were when it was only MCIT on campus. It also meant that the people who came on campus had made more of that conscious decision of, well, I'm on campus, I'm going to avail of the facilities that are around, I'm going to try to get to know more people, try to do cooler courses, maybe courses that are not offered on online. Um, so yeah, I think I've been very happy to see, and I hope that this will be a continuing trend even in this pandemic, where students are doing more diverse things in terms of um, taking different courses. I think there was a time maybe 4 or 5 years ago where everyone wanted to do machine learning and databases and maybe something else. Like you look at the resume, not resume, sorry, the transcripts of MCIT students, and you'd probably have like two clusters or something like that, right? Whereas these days, I feel that there are more things that people are doing. People are being a little bit more adventurous. Again, the coronavirus is things going to make people more risk averse, I feel, for the next couple of semesters. But yeah, I think we're headed in the right direction. I think we're still a unique program. I think, and also, I mean, while this doesn't directly pertain to folks like yourself, I think within Penn, more and more undergraduates are also discovering this program. So there are people who will take, like an undergrad programming class in their junior year or senior year even, and they're looking around, trying to scramble around for like a degree program. Like, how do I get into computer science? Well, transitioning from the undergrad to MCIT when you're in Penn is actually quite easy. We're
Mm-hmm,
seeing
mm-hmm.
more and more applicants coming from that route as well.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
subnet.
the submath thing. Yeah.
Cool, cool. That definitely answered my question pretty well. Like, so MCIT is gonna, it's still interdisciplinary, and computer science is still gonna exist, and you just see like more and more of like diversity and trends that didn't exist a few years back, right?
Yeah, I
Cool.
think students are more. I mean, short answer is that students are being more adventurous now.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope. I mean, among lots and lots of things that I can abuse the virus about, like I hope it doesn't tamper that adventurous spirit. I hope people don't say, "Look, there are only like two companies that are ever going to hire. We're all going to dump our resumes there," because we all sort of like follow in the footsteps of our seniors without realizing that there might have been pretty drastic circumstances, at least in this case.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I hope so too.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so I have one last question, and then I was thinking we might do a lightning round after that,
Sure.
where I just ask you random questions.
Sure.
So, last question.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
whatever you want. Yeah.
admission tips. What are you guys looking for?
Yeah, I think we addressed this a little bit. I think grit for sure. Uh, be genuine. We're um, yeah. I wonder if giving a specific example will be useful over here. Yeah, it'll be useful for me because I'm sick of that example. And if someone watches this video, at least I'll get like a variety, right? So I'll mention it. There, somewhere out there on the interwebs, I think that there's an example statement that says something to the effect of, I was debugging a program and I was spending a lot of time on it. And then suddenly at 3 a.m., I was able to figure out the solution. And when I first transitioned to being the director and was looking at statements, I was like, why does everyone finish their debugging at 3 a.m.? What on earth is going on over here, right? So that's just an example of like, just be genuine. Like, not all of you finished your debugging at 3 a.m. The reason you're saying that is because there's some weirdo human machine learning algorithm going on that's saying, okay, that person wrote that and they got into MCIT, so I'm also going to write that. No, just be genuine. We all have fascinating stories to tell. I mean, pretty much every MCIT, yes, of course, it's bias sampling here for sure. These are people who've managed to make it to campus. if I managed to sit down with them as I did once upon a time with you, Tina, and learned like, who you are, what you did before in your life, and all that. They're just fascinating stories. Like, why did you want to do computer science? You know, it is rarely as boring as I wanted money. I'm convinced that that could be a reason, yes, but there's also like, I don't know, some other cause over there, right? Like, and maybe that cause is something personal. You felt that um, technology can help in healthcare, and you saw someone in your family fall sick, and you saw that technology was not helpful. Maybe you've lived through this pandemic, as we all are, and well, I can tell you, like in my experience, telemedicine is totally horrible. Like, like you could be my doctor right now, Tina, and I'd have to pay you money because telemedicine appointment, right? So you feel like you can improve the state of telemedicine. So uh, give us specific examples, give us a reason why you're interested in like making this transition. I think that's very, very important. And then the last thing I'd say is recommendation letters. I think a lot of students make the mistake of not reaching out to people who know them well, people who can talk about. I'm not saying, like when so and so was in kindergarten. So, like, of course, if you have a teacher like that, for sure, reach out to them. But if you've done just a 1 month, 2 month boot camp experience in computer science, and you're expecting that teacher to write a very strong recommendation for you, um, yeah, they might be able to do that, but we're interested in knowing more about you. So someone who can say, I don't know their computer science, but when they took this course with me, they were the only one who ever managed to do this question. That question might be, I don't know, in sociology, but going back to that grittiness thing, right? Like, here's evidence of grit. That's worth a whole lot more than can you write a for loop in a boot camp. I mean, we're not asking, remember, we're not asking you to prove that you can do computer science right now. We're just asking you to say that you can take on challenges. How you prove that, think about that. And I'd say that that's probably like the first step to succeeding in the admission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I definitely can see that. Yeah. Okay, lightning round.
Sure. Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
this is one
I,
where, I mean, the other ones, you at least told me what they might be questions, but here I don't know.
oh
So,
no, I told you what the lightning round is going to be.
okay.
Right?
Then well,
Okay,
then I
good,
didn't prepare. Okay.
okay,
Not
good,
that I
good.
prepared for the other ones. It's more like, okay, at least those I knew. Okay, okay. Go, 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 go.
Okay, okay. No, now I can't even be fast because I can't read my writing.
Wait, are my answers supposed to be one word?
No,
Two
no, no.
words?
No, it doesn't have to be one word. It can be like one sentence, two sentences. Basically, just
Okay.
like they're going to be like fast questions.
Okay.
What's the best thing about being director of MCIT?
The students. That one's easy. Yeah. The students, the variety of students, the variety of challenges that they pose, and the immense amount of satisfaction that I hope they get as well, but I definitely get on graduation day. Which, damn you, coronavirus, you denied me my moment of happiness this spring. So
My
yeah.
graduation. That's
I
my
know
graduation.
your graduation, and I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I really hope you folks come back. If you don't come back, I'm gonna hound every single one of you.
I will
So
come back. I
thank
promise.
you.
Okay, next. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna have to edit this video. Mm, okay, I'm sorry. I have to. I literally can't read my writing, so I need to go look at what. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, you said that so many times. I'm like, how is that possible? Yeah.
Best thing about Philly. Why is Philly a great city?
Wow. So many reasons. Let's see. I I think Philly has something in it for everyone is probably the best answer I can give for me. I'll tell you why I like Philly. It's bikeable, it's walkable. As someone who likes sports, I really love that all the sports arenas are like right next to one another. It's an experience that you can't have, I think, in pretty much any other city, maybe in the world, where you can take a subway ride, go watch like a Phillies game in the afternoon and then an Eagles game at night. So those are some of the reasons. Yeah.
Cool, cool. What do you miss the most from pre-COVID?
I've already said students, I'd say, yeah, just getting to know your audience really well, or at least having the potential to get to know your audience very well. I think with Zoom or all these like online classes, yeah, even at the best of times, even when the students are really participating, you just don't get that energy. I Yeah, there've been days when I'm not feeling that great, and then I go into the classroom. I'm like, this is where I get my spirits up. This is where I hope students are also excited that they're learning something. Um, yeah, those 1.5 hours or whatever that I managed to spend with folks in the classroom, I don't, I've not found an equivalent on Zoom.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Oh, I miss that too. What's the funniest thing that has happened during your time at MCIT?
Oh,
Or
uh,
most embarrassing?
no, the funny. Well, I don't think this was embarrassing. This is definitely the funniest. And I think I narrate this story every single time because I think it's, yeah. I obviously won't mention the person, but in algorithms, typically when I teach breadth first search, I give the example of the Bacon number. Like degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Uh, Now, one student, because of my accent, because it's bacon, because I assumed that they weren't paying that much attention, heard it as breakfast search, and came up to me after the class and uh, actually even not even after the class. I think it was after the course was done or something like that, and said, "Yeah, Arvind, I always thought it was breakfast search, and I only now I know it's bread first search." And if you see me struggling, it's because, yeah, I mean, in the Indian accent, that is probably how I pronounce both those words, and I can easily see it be the same. Yeah. Anyway, that was the funniest, just because you had to be there, and I can totally see it. Like if you, and this is also, I think, a clear indication of like we do not. Sometimes there's this assumption that, oh, we're looking for prior knowledge, right? Like this student did not know computer science, is was a TA at some point for 594, our data structures class. But when they were doing 596, breakfast search, breakfast search, dinner search, they were all the same for them. And yeah, I will always think of it as one of, yeah, it was super funny. You have to be a CS person to get that. Yeah.
I think it's really funny. Okay, that's it. That's the questions I have for you. Anything you want to say to whoever may be watching this video, which I don't know at this point?
Yeah, I don't either. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, well, okay, I'll say this, and I hope you're not embarrassed at all when I say this. But folks, whoever's watching this video, like the interaction that Tina and I are having right now, that's what I love about this program. I love about this program. Like the fact that, you know, we're at the stage where I hope that the two of us stay in touch, and I hope that, she can give me shit anytime she wants to, and I can do likewise, and I can follow her CS life. Is something that, yeah, I'm very happy about. I don't think I would be able to do that in a different program. And yeah, this is like me, tooting my own horn, but I'd like to think that students in other programs don't manage to have that association with their teachers either. So yeah, so if you like that interaction, apply, come join.
Apply.
Yeah.
I completely agree though. Really, I don't think I could have had this conversation, like, just our relationship that we have right now, like the way in like another program, right? Like I feel like MCIT is very, very special in that sense. All right, thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming
no
on
problem, no
today.
problem.
Yeah, and then I feel like this has been, first of all, it's been just really enjoyable talking to you because we
Yeah,
haven't
likewise.
chatted in a while.
Actually, stop
Yeah,
recording, and then because I don't want this to end with like formal stuff. So yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is for
yeah.
the
Oh, this is for the
recording.
recording. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
be like,
Because I need a conclusion because it's very problematic. I've had that problem before where I
oh, I
like didn't
always have that.